amount of movement up in the blade to stop the frame. In order to get that, we have to shim. It's typically set here at the factory, but like I showed earlier on the other video, the shim between the metering valve and the top of the spool, that's where we have to start adding shim to get that fine line. There's a fine line between going too slow with the frame down and the amount of movement in the blade coming up into the guide to shut the metering off. So what we're dealing with is we've got the metering valve. Inside of here you got a felt washer to keep the dust and grime out. And we have a flat washer, just a standard cut flat washer. A series of shims. And then on top of that would be the spacer. And that's how it's going to be when you take this apart. If you were to change a metering valve, you'd have to reset this. So by finding that happy medium between the frame coming down at a decent rate, so it's not too slow, it takes forever to get down, and the metering valve using the least amount of movement to shut it off, is determined by how many shims. And in this case we have a 30 thousandths, a 10 thousandths, and a 5,000 shim, and it could be a series of any of these. It might just be one, it might be 2 or 3 of these, but that's how we stack these up. You have to put it together, you do your checks, and then you make the adjustment, and then you go from side to side. So you have to set one side, and you have to set the other side. So you want to leave the shim out of one side before you start over here. Start adding your shim till you get the frame to slow down a little bit. Minimal movement on the blade up into the guide, and then once you get that one set, and then you come back over here and do the same thing. Bring it till it slows down, take a little bit of shim out, check it. It's a feel thing, you got to just kind of work through it. And that's how you set the metering valves. One thing that when you take these 4 bolts off, you want to be sure that 2 things. Hydraulic system is off, and your cutting force pressure is backed all the way off. What will happen is you'll blow the spool out. The pressure up here will literally let that fall right out of here, and then you've got a real mess. That you want to try to avoid. If that happens, you want to try to get the spool back up inside as quickly as possible, because the seals will start to expand, and then you'll have a fun time putting it back together. One thing you'll read in the manual is using a bathroom scale. I'm going to demonstrate what we do to show how and what they mean by using a bathroom scale to set your metering valve. You just take an ordinary bathroom scale. You want to block some wood in there so you don't go plowing through it. This is all with the blade off, and what it's going to do is it's going to show approximately, and it's not going to be exactly what the gauge reads because the gauge is kind of a reference, but it's going to show that it has a weight that it's going to stop this frame at. Typically you want to keep it at a low setting, anywhere between 25 and 50 on your cutting force pressure gauge, and then your approach, you don't want to go throwing it down on there and smashing your scale. But I'm going to show what it does and what it will read when we do this. Down, the blade's going to push on the 2 pieces of wood there. It's going to put pressure on the scale. The pressure is going to build up, the frame will stop, and then there'll be a certain amount of weight shown on the scale. See, it builds up to about 176 and then it stops. It will drift eventually, so you want to just kind of let off the lower button, and then you can see that that would be what the cutting force is. It'd be about 178 pounds. what they mean, or they describe in the manual on how to use a bathroom scale to set your metering system up. So with that being said, that's pretty much how we set up, disassemble. If you're cleaning, replacing carbides, replacing the carbide slipper that rides on the back of the blade, as shown in the other video. In a nutshell, that's how we do it. That's how we roll.